Okay, Everfest says, I loved how in EQ it could be so calm and meditative in a camp. Then you could go instantly to a panic with the heart racing. It's like, oh shit, oh bad pool, oh my god, someone trained. Oh, right. Yeah, that is the vibe. That's the vibe. It's meditation, man. It's so one of the things from the first days that I played EQ, well, from the first days that I was working on the team, like I always called, I don't know if you guys did it, I'm not the greatest EQ player, and so like even when I was with my guild and we were doing super cool leading edge stuff, I was just kind of the guy that they carried, and I was always watching TV. I always had this tiny little TV back when a tiny TV was like still 20 pounds. And so my girlfriend and I, she had her PC over there. I had my PC here on this like big banquet table. We had a little TV between us. I would watch pretty much anything that was on that was, you know, because when you're sitting there for 14 hours or whatever, 20 hours in a given day or some shit, it's just, you're watching whatever. And so a lot of cooking network, but Cheers, right? When I would log into the game and my guild, I'd be like, hey guys, and the guild's like, you know, hey Sean, whatever the character name. It was like the TV show Cheers, where everybody knows your name. And so it's the idea of I get off work or you get off work, and it's like, oh man, I can't wait to log in and relax, right? I want to log in, have everybody say hi to me, like, hey, what's going on, buddy? How's it going? How's work? Oh, you know, bullshit, blah, economy, take my wife, please, blah, 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 whatever it is. And, you know, you go in there, you crack open a beer or whatever you're into, and then you sit in and you relax and you just go to meditating. Replied to Everfest, said, no other MMORPG in my experience really captured how easy a camp can go from easy to batshit insane just by the draws of luck, random roamers, spawn patterns, etc. Made PvP very interesting because all dungeon crawls were so challenging no matter how many times you did them. It felt like, well, and there's a variable, there's the variable of, I think it's a lot less like, you know, you're going to have a lower percentage of pucker moments if you're always sort of, you've got like a static group and you know the folks and you know they know what they're doing. But then you get some random cleric like me in your group and oh man. Will there be a plan for all races to have their own starting cities as development continues, or is this, or just this main city? As development continues longer term, we want to have cities in for the various races. The scale and sort of scope of what that will entail will probably vary. The goal really is to try to make these places that maintain their value instead of just starter cities, right? So now I know when folks say starting city, often they're not meaning like, hey, it's a city that you only start at and then you never use it again. I get that. It's usually like, hey, a place where I can start. But the goal will be for us to find ways to retain the value of those cities. And I think, you know, it only makes sense that they'll vary in scale. Some cities may just, you know, even if they're not as crazy as Night Harbor, there's certain cities that probably deserve a little bit of love, both based on the number of people that love playing those races, or also just kind of the difference in theme or whatever. So I can imagine our Deep Elf city being a little bit bigger than maybe, you know, the Wood Elf city, just because the Deep Elf city is such an interesting variance in theme. Yeah, it might be a small city, but what lies beneath, as John says, it may be a smaller city, but what's nearby. It may be a smaller city near another smaller city. So like Wood Elves and High Elves may be a little bit closer to each other, and then it's more about what's in that region with them, and then how far off is, you know, the next bigger city, that type of stuff. So it's really less about like, how do we create a perfect scale for all cities, and more about what's the city going to do for us. And then who knows, we may pick wrong. We may go, you know what, this one city that we make is, just too small, and we'll make it bigger. Rather than do a bunch of expansions that take you further and further away from the known world. I think it just makes a lot of sense for us to look at, all right, what if we expand this one area that, you know, folks have liked, or let's redo it in the same style, and improve it, that type of thing. UK Rad said, I thought one of the worst decisions with EQ2 was having everyone start in one of the 2 major areas. Love the various starting points in EQ. Sometimes you try stuff, sometimes it doesn't work. Tree City where you fall off and die for sure. Gotta have that. Oh, you like to do player housing in all racial cities or only in this city? All racial cities and outside of cities. I think I've mentioned the example a few times of maybe, you know, if there's a long haul from here, which there is, right? Like if I were to run out the northern gate, go through Sangreet Strand, go through the Glass Flats, and then into Dragon's Run, that's a bit of a hike. Imagine along the way in Sangreet Strand, there's a old inn that you can actually take the deed for and restore, and then you can run an inn if you want to be a person that runs an inn. There you go. That's your player housing, right? Maybe there's 1 or 2 buildings there, so you can have the inn and somebody else can use the other building for whatever they want. It could just be their house. It could be a blacksmith shop. It could be a trading post. That's the kind of stuff that we want to get in and really focus on a little bit more of the life sim sense of place type part of the game, right? How long do you imagine running across the world could take once the world is sort of complete? Goblin, I can't even put a number on it. I don't know. I think that's just something we're going to figure out as we go. I don't want to make a guess. I mean, we could sit down and talk about other examples. I think we have in the past, but I feel like until we've spent some time running around a bit more in these zones, then we're not going to know. Have you guys fleshed out the world map yet? Chaos Flux, we have an old one. We had like a first stab at one, but we'll probably move stuff around and play around with it. But anyway, to what I was saying, Goblin, I think the other thing that we want to get in, like we need to get mounts in, and it'd be really cool to have the pack animals mounts in like carts or wagons if we're going to get them in, and then see how we feel about that. And then as a team, we'll talk a little bit more. Like I've got ideas on how to expand the world without it being, hey, here's every city now and the rest of the game all at once. Because I mean, the only way we're going to do that realistically is if we wanted to make the rest of the world, it'll probably be, we hit a point where we've got the finances to be able to do that, first of all. And then second of all, that would take such a chunk of time that it would be, you know, brewing in the background for X amount of time anyway. So we'd still need to talk about what we would be doing in the meantime. You know, one of the thoughts has just been exploring different ideas that we can grow the game and the game world over time. And then make a fun and big deal out of, oh, this new racial city came online, right? And kind of treat it as little mini expansions in that regard, but all just part of the live service, and we'll see. But that's just me talking at the moment. Bad Ear Peeler said, I don't know anything about game making, so I'm curious if it would be more taxing to make Kelethin like 5 or 10 times higher in height, or is that negligible? No, it's negligible. It's really just more about, there are probably other technical questions that we have to resolve, like if there's anything weird that happens with rendering at that distance, or treat it as a world event. Exactly, Chaos Flux. And I think it'd be fun. I don't know. I mean, we're a small team. It's an indie project. We've been taking you along for sort of the ride with us and vice versa the whole time. This idea of like, oh shit, Gnomish city time, right? Like, I could see being pretty hyped for that. Perhaps in a few cities, the players need to fight off an invasion of a certain monster, Chaos says. Or they need to chase monsters out of the city. What? Freaking gnomes opened a dimensional portal. Now you got all these weird-ass Chaos Elves coming in that got to be swept out. Or maybe the goblins have taken over the Dwarven city. That seems pretty tropey. Be really cool to see Archage's housing system was introduced into a game of this nature. Big says, always loved what they did, not just sure it meshes well, but it would still be cool. I've got the feeling, I mean, given Ollie's love of housing and Star Wars Galaxies and UO and all sorts of stuff, I think we'll be talking about all sorts of ideas as we go.